This is the froth is just starting to percolate. MicroStrategy was like the spark of the froth. Now you have the early adopters or whatever, all these weird companies getting in.
Welcome back to Bitcoin.com's Token Narratives, where we discuss the biggest stories shaping the Bitcoin and cryptoverse. My name is Graham Stone, and I'm repping the lower end of the IQ commentator spectrum. I'm joined here by news and research gigabrain David Sensel and chief scientist Andrei Tarantyev. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hello.
So, Bitcoin bounced sharply after dipping below 100K on the Iran-Israel conflict. Meanwhile, the S&P 500 is once again brushing up against its all-time high. So markets seem to have settled in the nothing ever happens camp. What do you guys think? Is this a dangerous level of complacency that the markets have taken? Or maybe they've sniffed out that, in fact, no matter what happens geopolitically, whether it's war or tariff shenanigans, asset prices will just continue grinding higher, and the holders of those assets, i.e. the rich, will just keep getting richer.
That went dark there at the end, Graham.
Even
I saw a chart. I saw a chart this week where it tracked the wealth of what was it, the top 1%, or who holds the assets, right? The S&P 500, who holds the stocks, and it's just been climbing steadily. As in the concentration of wealth has just been climbing steadily. We all know this for the last 20, 30 years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think the markets are being stupid, and I don't think this is complacency. If anything, I would say that in these kinds of situations, you would just go with the market. I think it is the situation where the market in general is right. And it's not just one market. It's not just equity markets. You look at oil. Oil's come off bigly since the ceasefire. That's also a good sign. Gold has come off as well. So it's across multiple assets, not just the risky ones. And so I think we're kind of back on the path that we were on before this all happened. And if anything, you could say that this gives Trump more ammunition with the trade stuff as well, right? He kind of comes out of this looking good. And so that might help him finesse the trade tariff stuff in the next, he has 2 weeks before something like that.
So on that question, it seems that the consensus is that we're going to get another taco. Trump is going to back down. He's going to chicken out. No tariffs. That seems to be the consensus. Do you have a differing view there?
Well, just kind of going on David's point, I think now we've also had 8 months. I think like November was the big pop off on BTC, and it's kind of hovered in that 100K range, except for a month or 2 months after the tariffs when it dropped down to 80K. So it really does seem more like a consolidation period rather than some sort of complacency, right? Because like despite the ups and downs, we've basically kind of been in this 100K zone for over 8 months. Or around 8 months. So yeah, I don't view this as anything like crazy. And then you kind of have this like macro or event driven news where you see like a 5% or 10% dip on like the Iran stuff. You had the really big like 10 to 20% dip on the tariff stuff, but like bounce back, and it doesn't feel like there's any froth yet. I'm sure we'll talk about treasury companies later. But probably that's where the froth is building up, maybe in terms of the. You want to say something?
No, I'm
In
listening.
terms of yeah, in terms of the tariff stuff, I think the tariffs are starting to turn like semi bullish in a way, in the sense like I think there's been a lot of news now that they're bringing in like 30 to 35 billion or something per month on tariff revenue. There hasn't been any spike in inflation. That's going to put more pressure on the Fed. And even if like Powell doesn't want to do anything, I think he's out in a year. And obviously, the guy that has to replace him is going to be, you know, Trump's lackey for lowering interest rates. So it seems like everything is kind of uh, good news outside of these kind of like macro things, like or shock-driven things, like the Iran and Israel type
Yeah.
stuff.
So the dips that are caused by these like mini black swan events, those are buy the dip opportunities.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
as I've said last week and the week before, the fundamentals really haven't changed that much, right? Like nations are still going to be all these other nations outside of America are going to be printing money, right? That was the big news. Some of the big news that came from that NATO meeting that Trump attended, and they, I think that those European NATO members pledged to spend 5% on defense. That's coming from printing, right? That's going to be liquidity. Presumably, when rate cuts happen in the U.S., that'll also increase liquidity. And I think it's pretty. Go ahead.
No, just on the lingering for a moment on the allies, the Western allies, upping their GDP, upping their defense budget. So this chart here was posted by Bianco Research, and you can see what the European Monetary Union and Canada's percent of GDP spent on military has been for the last 60 years. And
Like
in
looks
1960,
like shitcoin charts, and there's some phobia at the very end where it's like it's a reversal. Sorry,
yeah.
guys.
So like
60-year
in the 60s, it
consolidation.
was it was around 4%. Now we're at like 1 to 2% for those allies. Meanwhile, the U.S. the last number we have here is 3.4%, down from nearly 10% in the early 60s. So if these countries, get it back up to that 5%, that's a lot of money, and it's going to be bond printing, which we know what that means for hard assets like Bitcoin.
Yeah, and America is going to join this soon enough. And I think there's a chart in here, some kind of related liquidity hopium. Even during this so-called tightening cycle, the U.S. money supply growth has been positive, right? 4.5% year on year, the biggest increase in U.S. money supply since 2022, July 2022. So we've already kind of been having some money printing. Probably this is due to the what's it called, the ratio of short-term debt that we're issuing. But it's going to continue and maybe even accelerate. So the value of Bitcoin versus the dollar should only rise further as this happens, right? So
okay, well, let's look at the cycles here. This is a chart that you posted, David, or you linked to. So we've got the current cycle, orange here, and it's mapped against the other cycles in terms of time. Now you can see that probably the cycle that it's most closely resembles at this point is the 2017 cycle. So, you could argue that there's a lot of room to move. People will, of course, criticize this, like things are different now. I don't know if you guys had any thoughts on this. I'm sure you've seen this type of chart floating around.
Yeah, I classified this as hopium because it's hard to really say how much value it is, but
yeah, there's only three previous data points.
I mean, I think the thing my pro hopium chart is the froth always builds somewhere, right? Like at some point you get the greedy people coming in trying to just buy, 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 buy. I don't think we're there yet in any sense of the word. And yeah, like I vividly remember both 2017 and 2021. The greed scale was just way off the charts. I don't see that yet, so I'm pro hopium.
I mean, but speaking to that, I mean, this is, I don't know if we can get into a view, but that's, I think the space that's going to kick that off, Andrei, is the Bitcoin Treasury company space, BTC for short. And I think that's where you're going to see kind of this just unhinged exuberance catch on. Personally, that's what I think, at least.
Yeah, we're going to get into that. But just one more chart I'd like to bring up here on the hopium angle. So here we have, again, the Bitcoin price mapped against the M2 global liquidity. And you could argue here that what we're looking at right now is kind of a decorrelation, similar to one that happened in April. So M2 went up, but the price of Bitcoin went down. So you could argue this is a good entry point if you're not long enough on your Bitcoin. You can see what's happening with the M2 money supply. Bitcoin's kind of lagging right now.
Okay, so I have a question for you guys. I think we all agree, it sounds like we all agree that we have another fairly significant leg up in the coming months or whatever, relatively short time frame. My question for you is, does BTCD, does Bitcoin dominance go up or down? I ask this because a lot of the people I follow, like a month and a half ago, they all claimed BTCD is going down. It's down only, guys, now. Alt season's loading up. Right? And we talked about this, and I've covered it in my newsletter and other places. I personally disagree with that. I think BTCD is going to hit at least 70%, between 70 and like 74 is where it'll top. It's at like 66 now.
Hold on, I'm just bringing up the chart.
Okay. And it's been rising slowly after these. So you see where that dip is in the chart? That's when people were like,
it's over.
Yeah. They were like, yep, BTCD is done. And these are big accounts that I follow. And I was totally against it. I was like, no, I think it's going to still go up. But from here, what do you guys think? Do you think it's going to keep going up, or do you think it's going to slow down? Yeah.
I think the only thing that I see that would make BTC dominance actually go down is the increase in are stablecoins part of this BTC dominance, or is it not included?
Good question.
I imagine they are. I think they're included. Yeah, I think they are included. But still, they're tiny. I think relatively small.
Yeah. So the one thing that I don't see any explosion in the alt space. I do potentially see some explosion in the stablecoin space to where that actually outpaces Bitcoin growth in the next, I don't know, 6 to 12 months, right? Because I think this is, if the narrative is all about institutions, what are institutions excited about is much more on the stablecoin side of things and getting those on chain. And that's also just like what I see in the crypto world, I guess, as well. Like, people are not excited about altcoins of any sort right now. The dominant narratives is like, okay, we're going to get more stables, we're going to get that on chain, and maybe that will trickle down into like Ethereum, Solana, whatever, like these L2 platforms. So that seems like a pretty bearish case for the altcoin space in general, where like that's the hopium of like how these will accrue value in the mid to short to midterm. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think
And
go.
just to add to that, Andre, I checked just now, and stablecoins are included in the Bitcoin dominance chart. So, given that, I think you could argue that like Bitcoin dominance is actually higher even than it looks, right? Because a lot of the market cap is now stablecoins, and they're not really a competitor. Well, they are stablecoins a competitor. I mean, they're
No,
not.
I don't think so.
People aren't investing in stablecoins, right? So. Um, yeah, so like I don't know if that's
We need to get that
if that
chart at
yeah
some point. We need the big BTC dominance versus including versus not including stablecoins over the past like year or two, and see what that looks like.
There is
yeah
another chart, Bitcoin versus altcoins minus, I think it's ETH and Solana, and obviously stable coins wouldn't be in that. And that looks like a shitcoin chart, right? It just goes like this. It goes like this and like this, and we're nearing the kind of all-time low area. But I think we will get an altcoin run. If you look at that chart, there's 2 points that go up to around between 70 and 74, and then it's a sharp decline, right? It goes up, down, and then it goes up for a long time, and then it goes down. I think that's going to happen. I think you're going to see, but I don't think it'll be as sharp as last time because these people aren't going to be moving into alts as much. But I think it'll kind of top up around between 70-74%, maybe a little higher because of all the institutional interest.
I think there's also I think there's also more, what do you call it, like sobering expectations on what the like ceiling of any altcoins really are. Because I think like in past cycles, it was much more like, okay, this is going to get like to Ethereum's level, like 50, 100, it's going to surpass Bitcoin, $1 trillion, like all these things. I don't think people really believe that about like altcoins anymore.
Dude, I disagree on a couple coins. I think maybe they'll be more selective, but I think I highlighted this a while ago, Graham. Didn't I? Yeah, I did. Where was it? Arthur Hayes was like, when is Hyperliquid gonna flip Solana? Right, like that's been the thing this cycle, right?
right. So they're comparing it to other altcoins. Nobody's trying to compare things to Bitcoin anymore. Where to Andrei's point, I think in the past there was still a chance that there was going to be a Bitcoin killer, right? And
yeah.
I don't think anyone's really thinking that anymore. So
yeah, I agree with that, but I also don't think Hyperliquid's going to flip Solana this cycle. I think that's pretty wild. That's a pretty wild thing to say. So you could have things like that. What is it? Also, there's been some people I follow, like Jonah from 1000X, saying like syrup maple is going to flip Aave. I mean, so you're starting to get these kinds of things said,
Yeah.
But I also think like in terms of like new launches, because I think we don't really talk about it at all, but like there are new launches like still every week essentially. But I think like the expectations for those projects are just like way lower right now, right? So when people look at like $100 million market cap, now it's like, wow, that's really expensive. Like before, it was like, oh, that's cheap. I'm getting in on like the ground floor. Now it's like you're launching at $100 million market cap with like nothing. I don't know if I'm going to be buying that. So I think like those expectations have also shifted. So I don't know if we see, because I think like that's where like there actually is more potential for runners where the Hyperliquid is like a story for that, where it like starts off at a very, very, very low or non-existent market cap and manages to pump a lot, right? Like this is why people like crypto, is they want those kind of projects. And now it became so saturated for a long time with like BC coins, overly too much money raised, ICO type coins. People are just so jaded that the people that are going to have like the next good coins have to launch at that, like, okay, I launched at 5 million or like whatever, and now it's a billion, right? Like those are the things people are trying to capture, I think, now.
You don't think that once Bitcoin is like a ridiculous price target, that kind of exuberance won't bleed down into the alts, and we'll see just ridiculous this kind of unhinged predictions or statements come back, because I imagine that will, because I agree with you right now, Andrei. People are more sober and realistic, but my guess is once these like lingerie companies that are buying Bitcoin 50x their market cap, and then that kind of thing gets done, it's just gonna cause havoc and in the alt space.
I think it bleeds into the top projects, but like I don't know. I really feel like it won't get down into that like third tier of projects. Like there's like I would say it's like Bitcoin tier one, that's like the top 20 coins. Arguably there's like a tier three of like 20 to 100, and then you have like everything below top 100. Like I don't know if it bleeds down that far. Like are people that are crypto like savvy and rich at this point like still taking like bets on those? I don't know.
Dude, a Bitcoin, a lingerie championship company just buying Bitcoin. I mean, I think we're going to get into some crazy times in the next like 6 to 8 months.
But what you're talking about, right? These like TradFi companies that are on stock markets, publicly listed companies, they're the ones who are pumping, not altcoins. And that's, I think, a growing narrative here.
I'm saying that feverish mentality will move into the alt space, is my guess. And it doesn't have to be logical or anything, but I think if you're starting to see this in Bitcoin, which is like should be the most sober, boring asset, right? Like, so you just take a step back and say, this is what people who are buying Bitcoin are doing now, right? This is the sober, boring coin. And you have lingerie champion, leagues buying it. Good Lord, what happens in like 6 to 8 months when Bitcoin is like 300K or 400K? I don't know. But I imagine that mentality washes down through the risk range. Yeah, maybe not the same people buying, but the attitude.
I think the potential alternative though for the people that are trying to get in on the risk curve though is like it's much easier to do big leverage plays these days, especially on chain, right? So I think a big thing for Hyperliquid, right, is that you can have BTC leverage on chain very easily. I think one of the things in previous cycles that made altcoins really attractive for, we can call them crypto natives or whatever. It's basically like a higher multiple for the market. But now it's kind of like, okay, if I'm going to like take this degenerate gamble on whatever, am I just better off doing a 40x long on Bitcoin, or am I better off taking a punt on XYZ altcoin and hoping that 40x's? I think the decision matrix actually goes, if the better play is to take the 40x leverage long on BTC.
You're a very smart guy, Andrei. That's why you're wrong. That's why you're 100% wrong. You're making too much sense. Everything you just said makes too much sense. Why is a lingerie company buying Bitcoin? That doesn't make sense. That's retarded. So that's to me that's the answer. Decision matrix. The decision matrix is I want money. I want rich.
Well, let's just get into a quick recap here of the Bitcoin corporate treasury narrative and how that's going. So the latest big one was Anthony Pompliano's ProCap Financial, which raised 700. Yeah, it raised 750 million in its funding round, making it the biggest initial fundraise for a Bitcoin corporate treasury company thus far. Of that, 235 million is going to be convertible debt, and equity is the rest. They're aiming to hold $1 billion in Bitcoin and generate revenue via a Bitcoin-denominated financial services platform. No idea what that means, but interesting.
Maybe it's a block space competitor. Isn't that what the? Just kidding.
Yeah. So let me just bring up the Bitcoin Treasuries net site. Should be fine here somewhere. Where'd it go? BitcoinTreasuries.net. So according to Bitcoin Treasuries.net, around 250 companies now hold Bitcoin in their treasuries, which is roughly a doubling from just a few weeks ago. And combined, these companies, so some of them are private, some of them are public, they hold around 4% of the total BTC supply. Just a few new entrants in the last week. We had in the UK, publicly traded Panther Metals announced plans to buy 4 million pounds of Bitcoin for its treasury. And the stock pumped on the news, doubled. And another one is in a French company, Sequans Communications, announced a raise of 384 million to launch a Bitcoin treasury. In that case, the stock appears to have fallen. So they're not all guaranteed wins, which is interesting.
Well, you got to wait and see. So, for example, if they've bought Bitcoin, right? If we get another leg up, then the stock almost mechanically has to go up, right? Because the NAV goes up. So think about if we get a nice big pump in Bitcoin. That's just going to supercharge this even more, right? We're in a consolidation period, and these stocks are getting pumped on it. Man, this can get quite reflexive, right? If the price of Bitcoin goes up substantially.
Yeah, this is actually very interesting. I wonder if basically you kind of have this in the end situation where like Bitcoin by proxy becomes the biggest mover of the S&P like 500. I'm talking like 10 to 20 years down the line or something.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
Where then, none of the companies Bitcoin is obviously not part of it, but there's so many of the companies holding it that when the Bitcoin price goes up and down, it just has like such a massive effect on the stock market as a whole. That could be a future near us, not too far away.
It's a dark future because it means all these companies will be non-productive. They won't be doing things to create value and more efficiency in the world. They'll be holding Bitcoin and stroking themselves. Awful. That's just degrowth. That's what that is.
That's the future.
So I personally don't think that's going to happen. I know Saylor has kind of intimated at that, but some of the people that I follow are like, "This is bad. This is bad for Bitcoin. This is bad for the world. It's just bad." And so I think it won't happen. It could happen for a little bit until people realize how bad it is. But yeah.
Just lingering on Saylor for a moment. Some of the numbers this was from a keynote at a speech in Europe recently, I believe, conference there. 21 million coins at 21 million price in 21 years, growing 21% ARR with 21% vol. So
cringe.
Yeah, like where are these numbers coming? It's just like
it's insane.
It's pretty weird.
It's just
and then here's Meta Planet's total Bitcoin holdings. Like, what are they doing here?
As of yesterday,
they're just choosing these numbers. Okay, so now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So yesterday they bought 1, 2, 3, 4 Bitcoin, 1,234 Bitcoin. So now their total holdings are 12,345 Bitcoin. What is going on?
What the heck is this? What having a board meeting sitting there? What number would be funny if we bought that many Bitcoin?
This is a failed hotel chain that owns one hotel, right? Like talk about good productivity for Japan. It's just so this is pointed out. I have to give mad credit to Predator. I think we mentioned him a week or two ago, but he was pointing out that a lot of these Bitcoin treasury companies are just doing these kind of weird number things. And when you see this kind of stuff in traditional finance, where it's almost like marketing, it's not a good sign. It's not a good sign of like people being serious about what they're doing. right? They're spending hundreds of millions of dollars for a number. Oh Jesus!
This is like the financial nihilism end game, right? Where it's like a complete lack of, I would say, like 2017 or whatever is like retail loss of trust in the system. Now it's like institutions themselves have
I
completely
know.
lost trust in the system. It's like, this is just not going to work. Like we gotta buy BTC.
No, but Andrei, I think what, to your point, 2017 we had a crazy blow off top, and that was retail led, right? Now imagine a crazy blow off top where traditional financial institutions are the ones buying. How high, how crazy of a top is that going to be when
Yeah.
when you have like, I think the end state will be to like sell everything you own. Will be when like Larry Fink comes out with some like numerology announcement about buying Bitcoin. Right? I bought 469,000, and you're like, sell.
This is
All
another thing.
right.
Like,
No, go ahead, Andrei. Yep.
yeah, one last point on this. Like, my understanding is basically like all of these companies are essentially like zombie companies, right? Like none of these are good companies, and they're just like doing this. It kind of makes me sit there and wonder, like, how many more of these zombie companies are out there, right? Because that's your true addressable market. Like, what percent of the Nasdaq or whatever is actually just like these companies that they're not going to grow. They're not going to like get any growth. They have no idea what to do. And it's like, and they're still like, they got to pump their share price somehow. So like, that's like your total addressable market of these Bitcoin treasury companies, and how far will it go?
Yeah, potentially quite a bit higher.
Yeah.
So I think this might be a good time to do our where are we in the cycle segment, and I've got a little musical intro for this one.
Is it time to stack or time to go? Are we moonbound or just broke? Where are we in the cycle?
Oh yeah. I love it.
Okay, where are we in the cycle, David? We've compiled a bunch of data points here to track where we are in the cycle, the ridiculous things that we're seeing around. How ridiculous are they? What do they mean for our position in the current cycle?
Yeah.
That's what we're exploring.
So you can kind of see this live on X by following me or Graham. I just post about this, and I always tag Graham in these when we talk about them. But the first up is, let's talk about Ledger.
Okay, Ledger.
Yeah. So Ledger announced that they have a new sponsor for the team. Oh, sorry, they are sponsoring a team, the Spurs, the San Antonio Spurs, I guess, in Andrei's neck of the woods, Texas. This to me smacks of the 2020 to 2022 cycle, where famously FTX became a sponsor of, I think, Major League Baseball and the Miami Heat.
Crypto.com Arena.
Crypto.com Arena, although they've stuck around. I think they're the only one.
And so my response to this is, speaking like to your point of they stuck around, like Ledger, they do have a sustainable business model. They sell a lot of those devices. They're growing out their ecosystem. It's not like all just vaporware.
Yeah, but
they force deprecate their hardware, so you have to buy more.
exactly. But and I agree with you. I agree with you, Graham. But how big of a market? How big of a market is Ledger? Right, like the hardware wallet crypto market. I think it's got to be small. So maybe this makes financial sense. My guess is that it probably doesn't, and it's much easier to make mistakes, like budget mistakes, when you start sponsoring NBA teams. So
no,
again,
I don't. I think it's a well-run company. They've got a marketing budget, and they've identified this as an awareness campaign. Like, are they going to be able to directly tie their like revenue to this? As ever, it's a hard game in marketing, but it improves the Ledger brand.
Yeah. Except, well, I mean, so we talk about investments especially in crypto, which are so cyclical. Putting money into investments when you're on the upswing, especially the kind of after a year and a half upswing of a cycle, is usually not good, right? Hiring a bunch of people late cycle, making a lot of infrastructure investments, real estate investments, buying new offices and stuff late cycle, that's usually not a good thing to do. And so the time for them to, I would imagine, do this kind of sponsorship would have been like a year and a half ago when crypto was crap. And they probably would have gotten a insanely better deal. So again, I mean, I don't know.
I wonder.
I think to me, this is a kind of where are we in the cycle when you start seeing people spend a lot of money and we're late in the cycle. We're definitely not early, right?
This is let's move on to the next one because it's much more egregious. A footwear startup is teaming up with 2 space companies to design a shoe in orbit as part of a mission to make artificial intelligence and blockchain less expensive and more eco-friendly than it is on Earth. Now,
from Bloomberg, this is from Bloomberg. This is not like some sarcasm or like a LARP.
Correctly pointed out in the comments that the only thing it's missing is quantum, I believe. You're missing quantum. You're missing quantum for the full effect. Okay. What else we got?
Pengu.
All right. ETF. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, Bitcoin ETFs, yeah. ETH ETFs, yeah. Would you have like Balkanus and Safer talking to 92% that lots of like blue chip altcoins are going to have ETFs this year? Solana, Litecoin. Here we have a Pengu ETF, the coin from the penguins. What are they called?
Pudgy penguins.
Pudgy penguins NFT, and they have their own chain. I think on I forgot, Optimism maybe. So why not? Why not a Pengu ETF? Sure.
Has everyone given up on NFTs? Is there still any hopium? If all hopium is so low, is there any hopium on NFTs still?
The new NFT is an ETF. What are you talking about?
Next up, Lingerie Fighting Championships announces Bitcoin strategy in advance of first UK shows. So there's a lingerie fighting league, just in case you didn't know about that.
Jesus. All right.
What else we got?
Oh gosh. So this is a take from a guy I follow that I respect a lot. And I want to hear your thoughts on this, and I'll just read it. Pomp buying 1 billion of Bitcoin in a treasury vehicle feels like the second or third inning to me. Definitely not early, but still a ton of room to run. Talking about American baseball. What is that? 9 innings? I think 9 innings. So second or third inning.
Yes.
Thank you. We're about a third.
9 innings in a baseball game.
We're about a third of the way through this thing. Thoughts?
That seems like an underestimation. More like 6. Bottom of the 6th.
I kind of agree with this take. I think we're in liftoff mode right now. This is the froth is just starting to percolate. MicroStrategy was like the spark of the froth. Now you have the early adopters or whatever, all these weird companies getting in, and then you'll have like the next wave, and that's inning 3 through 9 is when there's just a wave of companies, because like all these companies are still weird, right? Like it's just like once you see the, I don't know, Caterpillar or something like talking about their Bitcoin strategy, that's inning 7. That's inning 8. Lingerie company, inning 2.
Pornhub.
Yeah, Andrei, what you're saying there, Andrei, what you're saying
5?
there, I think is quite similar to what this other person posted, which was basically that we're only in the Bitcoin corporate treasury movement is only a few months old, actually. you could, even though like MicroStrategy has been around for like doing this for 4 years or something, and then MetaPlanet started over a year ago, but it didn't become something that like the world thinks is replicatable until only just a few months ago.
Okay, so well, okay, I want to mixing up this metaphor. So the Bitcoin Treasury play as a baseball game might be in inning 2 or 3, but the cycle, where are we in the cycle? Where if the cycle is a baseball game, I would say we're in like 6 or 7.
No, but that's the thing. No one's going to be, the moment Bitcoin starts going down heavily, all Bitcoin Treasury company announcements are just going to cease immediately, right? Like it's just going to be over in terms of like the announcements when there's like a significant enough downturn or like a prolonged downturn. So I view those two cycles as almost 1-to-1 mapping.
So you think
essentially
you think we're in a this cycle is only in inning 2 or 3, so we have like another year to 18 months to go before. Wow. Okay.
Yes.
Interesting. I like it
because I think it just takes longer, right? Like it takes a long
to think about that.
The institutional stuff just takes longer to percolate compared to retail trading, like on chain, right?
So that would put us. That would put us at a blow off top in what, 27, like end of 26, beginning of 27.
Yeah, what's the best month usually for crypto?
December,
November.
Yeah, December next year, maybe November, December next year.
Oh man, you might be right. Honestly, you might be right. That could be it.
Yeah,
because
the consensus is really that crazy. The consensus is that it's things. The blow off top is going to be earlier than that. So, in general, the market likes to delve out max pain to consensus participants. So if the consensus is that it's happening earlier, it's kind of poetic that it would happen later because there'll be a lot of butthurt people who sold too early.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I guess you're right. Like I don't see it ending at the end of this year, like in 5 months. Because it's like you said, there's no way that it's gonna take more time for sure. So I was looking to maybe mid year next year, like this
200
summer.
companies in the grand scheme of things is very small, right?
Yeah.
Like in the grand scheme of like number of companies.
So, yeah. I might have to revise it. I might have to revise it to something like that.
We get 10,000 companies holding Bitcoin on their balance sheet.
Oh my God. Interesting. That's crazy.
All right. Any other where are we in the cycle data points to share? I've got one here, which is that there are more Bitcoin holders than gold holders in the US. That seems interesting.
Yeah, I if you read the comments, there was a lot of pushback from some of this stuff. So I don't know quite how. It depends on how you measure it, apparently. So there were some people. This chart was taken, I think, from something else, and so they were on the source material. They were kind of going after that. So it might be a little more nuanced than what is being said. But yeah.
Okay, well, one other thing I'd like to bring up here is this report from Kaiko Research. Let me just bring this up. So it's talking about the amount of crypto that's being traded via the Korean won. And the won is now the second largest fiat currency to crypto trading pair, doing 663 billion according to Kaiko in 2025 versus 823 billion for USD. So more trading volume going through the won than every other currency in the world combined besides the US dollar. And also, according to this research, about half of all non-Bitcoin trading volume, so altcoin trading volume, moves through Korean platforms.
Did they give reasons why, or hypotheses?
Yeah, well, no. I mean, they speculate that it's a combination of financial desperation.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Cultural, right? Like, just degenerates trading. But this is pretty fascinating. Korea accounts for like 0.5% of the global population and 50% now of fiat trading volume of altcoins going through won. Korean
I wonder.
platforms.
I was going to say, like, the DP was a DPRK. I wonder if there's if some of the funds are being laundered via Korea from North Korea.
Yeah, I was going to also say, like, I wonder if this is like indicative of more of the trend towards decentralized stuff for countries outside of the use, and like Korea is this like weird outlier. Because I think like what I know of, like the two big trading platforms are like Binance and that's like basically accessible to everyone, which is USD. And then you have like US based exchanges, but there's like regional exchanges are kind of like dead as far as I know, except apparently Korea.
Except Korea, yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be a result of their tight regulation, I guess. And which also is why there's the kimchi premium. It's hard to move crypto from Korea to the rest of the world and vice versa.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think cameraman Daniel, who lives in Korea, told me that there's no cap gains tax on crypto in Korea. So it's open season over there, right? Any gains you make, tax free, which would account for a lot then, right? Better than gambling, better than going to pachinko or something.
Yeah. All right. Well, on the question of regulation and the way crypto is taxed in various regions, I saw a report that Japan's Financial Services Authority is finally proposing to cut tax on crypto gains from the way it is now, which maxes out at 55%. So crypto gains in Japan are just like treated as income, and you just tack it on to whatever your income is. And so if you're in the highest income bracket in Japan, it's 55%. And they're proposing to reclassify that to like a 20%. And then, so I wonder what that would mean for companies like Metaplanet, first of all, but also I just feel like this move from the regulator, like if it actually happens, it's more evidence that governments they're kind of like giving up their absurd policies. Governments around the world are kind of giving up their absurd policies towards crypto because they're like, well, we have to, like, it's just not going to work. Like, this thing is happening. We can't just have these like antiquated policies against them. And Thailand, also on that note, the cabinet there just voted to eliminate capital gains tax on Bitcoin to promote the country as a crypto hub. So another entrant into the sort of the Dubai game of trying to, or this Dubai Singapore game of trying to attract money and through like friendly crypto policies. So I think both of these are, they're just pointing to the growing global adoption of Bitcoin and crypto, and governments finally having to be sensible with their
I think a
policies.
lot of this. I think a lot of this Japan stuff, and maybe some of these other Asian countries, I think honestly they're having to do this. They're being forced to do this because America is now competitive, right? They didn't have to do this before, but now they're having to fight to retain the businesses that can go to America and they're going to flourish, right? And the majority of crypto is still bought, or the biggest country by far is America. So to me, when I see what Japan's doing, it's like, oh, now you actually have to compete and you're going to have to. You can't just be greedy and lazy.
So the policy shift in the U.S. is having repercussions for policy around the world.
Yeah,
right.
And it also just becomes like this whole nationalistic thing too, right? Which I think is probably an outcome of U.S. policy and Trump, where it's like, if this thing is happening, the best situation as a nation state for you is to get as much of it as possible within your borders as possible, right? Because otherwise, then it's just going to go somewhere else. So you're like racing to the gates to beat everybody else before they accumulate more. And then you have this scarce resource, which is good for national security, essentially.
And honestly, being in America is preferable because it might not seem stable, but from a business perspective, it's incredibly stable. The laws are good and strong, and the legal structures there are great for businesses, and so that has tremendous advantage once it's accepted and kind of what's it called, very transparent. And so I think personally, now that America has kind of sorted itself out in this regard, it's going to be very enticing for companies all over the world to move to the US and try to get a slice of that, because it's also new. So yeah, these other countries are now going to have to fight harder to retain crypto companies and money.
Seems like good news.
Yeah. So can we end on this altcoin thing that I posted? Yep. I added to the thing.
All right,
because I just want to
last
hear
topic
your
for
thoughts
the day.
Too. Yeah,
tee it up.
So are alts investable? Right. We've talked a lot about Bitcoin today, and I think it's important to when we talk about altcoins, we're not just talking about the pump.fun shitters. We're talking about like major altcoins. Are they? Can you buy these? Can you make money off of these? And so here's a post from TXMC, who does good stuff, and he goes, "Remember Avalanche, Polkadot, Thorchain, Near Protocol? Virtually this entire space is garbage." All caps. These coins have no demand, and their projects are vampiric wastes. Do not invest in this stuff. And then he shows a bunch of charts, and it's all kind of your classic shitcoin looking chart, right? A massive run up and then down only forever. He also includes in an earlier post Arbitrum, Optimism, Blast, Aptos, and they all kind of look the same. And these, again, are not small, insignificant projects. These are huge, brand name, marquee altcoins, and they're all, at least up to this point, down only. So I ask you guys, what do you think? Would you touch any of these? Are any kind of like big major coins like these are they investable? Is this something that you can get, you can buy?
I think you could trade these on a short time frame. Go ahead, Andrei.
I would say one project that seems to have bucked the trend a little bit from this major is Aave. So this is like one coin that I've seen that, I mean, still down probably like 50% from its peak, but compared to, it's had a nice grind up over the past like couple years. So you actually see a resurgence or an uptrend from the bottom. I don't know if that lasts. Maybe it was just a hype cycle, but it looks Tron is another one.
Check in on Tron.
Tron looks amazing. Tron looks amazing. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Up only.
Well, so when I look at the Tron chart,
there are winners.
When I look at the Tron chart, this is to me is a where are we in the cycle chart, because it looks like it's starting to go parabolic.
Yeah,
doesn't it? So,
well, so many tailwinds.
Can't imagine that going.
Aren't they listing? Aren't they doing some sort of Tron company?
Yes, yeah, and they're like knee deep in World Liberty Financial, however you say it. They're like Justin Sun is best friends with the Trump family, so I mean it's quite a setup. I'll say this though, look, if you look at Aave and Tron, two things that kind of maybe not maybe, two things that differentiate them from all the others is revenue, right? Tron makes a buttload of revenue on stablecoin transactions. I think they're like one of 5 L1s. None of the majors have it, right? Solana and Ethereum don't have it. They're one of like 5 L1s, and I think they're the number one that generate positive revenue, right? Because of the transaction volume of stablecoins. And then Aave, it's long been rumored is going to start offering dividends or yields or something, some buyback kind of situation, a la Hyperliquid. And so that is, I think, a lot of the price appreciation is front running this announcement that's been stymied by U.S. regulation. So, yeah, both of them have revenue, right? This is that revenue narrative that we've heard, that Hyperliquid kind of pioneer.
Tron's number 5 by revenue over 30 days, 55 million. So over half a billion annualized revenue.
So yeah, I mean, I think maybe that's the boring answer is you want to be in coins that have some kind of revenue potential, at least from a narrative perspective. I think Tron's slightly different because Sun owns some. It's been reported, it's been speculated like 90+% of the supply, which means that you can make such beautiful looking charts, right? Because you just sell strategically. So that would be a reason, I think, to get into Tron. But yeah, maybe narrative plus that. And then all these others, the developing narrative, I'm going to talk about this in my newsletter this week, is the what's it called? Failure of the yield model. Seems to be a growing consensus amongst people in crypto that this staking yield model is like an abject failure. Near protocol recently voted to reduce its emissions down from something, I think it was upwards of 8%, maybe 10, down to like 2 or less. Solana has been trying to do this for a while. Ethereum has done this and maybe is going to reduce it further. But then all these other things you have like Avalanche, Polkadot, Thorchain, I'm not sure if they probably do offer yield, and just in terms of dilution. Optimism, Arbitrum, they definitely do, right? So a lot of these things, it's a growing narrative that yield, too much yield, right? Like it's got to be like 2% or less is all you need to secure the chain, and you're basically just taxing everybody who uses the chain and holds the asset. And it creates ugly charts. It creates ugly charts. But ugly.
All right, so consensus is alts mostly not investable, except for the ones that actually generate revenue. And maybe one point to add to that would be that the revenue accrues back to the token in some way. So this is, of course, why Hype, one of the key reasons why Hype has done so well, because like 99% of the revenue goes back to
97.
Buybacks. 97. Yeah, and then beyond that, of course, there isn't a huge overhang of VC money to sell the coin.
Zero.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's team tokens, but you could argue the team is aligned for the long-term vision. Tron, yeah, definitely has revenue, but there's questions there about the concentration of ownership. So it's kind of a sort of Damocles, you could argue.
I would say it's a trust.
Over. It's a trust issue. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, do you trust that Justin Sun's gonna keep the chart looking beautiful? I would say probably yes. That's my guess, right?
Yeah,
why ruin a was that a 4-year, 5-year chart? It's just like this.
Yeah, unless he gets into trouble and needs to cash out.
Yeah,
it's his masterpiece, painting the chart.
It's his masterpiece. It's
Michelangelo.
Screw that banana thing he bought for $6 million. Look at that chart. The patience, and the
All right, let's end it there. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your insights as usual. And thanks to everyone who made it to the end. See you next week on Token Narratives.